Howdy, everybody. I'm Thomas Blair.
And I'm Mark Halash.
And this is the July ACE Q&A, where we answer the question from our ACE development partners for you. Let's explain how we make an ACE development Q&A. Every month, our ACE development partners, who are Ruby and higher, submit their questions on the forums. Our video producer, John, compiles all these questions. They get filtered by somebody. And we bring them to you in a forum of answers. All right, first question. Why numbers matter? Leaving behind the 5-digit system, in my opinion, just felt like the right thing to do. Now that I've tested the 4-digit system, I honestly feel the only place the 4-digit system really feels right is in combat. Crafting just feels wrong. So they're talking about the number squish that we recently did on all of the numbers, where we used to have health in the 60,000s and whatever, and now it's down to the 6,000s range. However, when you craft something, everything ends up in the same 5 to 5. Great success is a 5 to 5, and amazing success is 5 to 5, and that kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. So what do you think we can do about that, Mark?
Well, that is a matter of showing you significant digits, decimal places and whatnot, right?
Yeah, in fact, on the damage numbers, we don't show anything. We don't show any decimals.
Yeah, we don't show any decimals. So that's a problem, and you've noticed.
We could also change the scale on there if we really want to. There's a variety of math tricks that we can use. We could double it and then half it on the back end in the actual combat formula. There's all kinds of things we can do. So we'll put it on the board, and it is something that we will look at in the future to make that feel better because, of course, we want the crafters to feel good when they get those amazing successes. Right. So, yes, we'll look into it. So this question is related to the first one, which is some stats they claim suffer from the same problem. And specifically, the example they give is like glass cannon giving 0.15 damage modifier.
Right.
And what that is it's a display thing, really. Right. Mm-hmm. It's actually 15%. It's not actually 0.15. We just don't have a good way to show on the character sheet or any of our stats display on the player side that that's 15%.
Right. I mean, basically, our stats UI is getting a pretty big overhaul here pretty quickly. So,
mm-hmm. And we're going to do the math on the back end so it looks appealing to you on your side. It's just, that's such a polished level of you know what I mean? Right. And at this point, we want to make sure it works. And it stems from a lot of our systems either being on a 0 to 1 scale or a 0 to 100 scale. This one just happens to be on that 0 to 1 scale.
Right.
So it will look better in the future. It's part of the test right now. At the moment, it's a jungle to keep track of what stats do, what numbers influence. I realize there's a ton going on in them, but there's just, how do I see them all? Well, we are working on a character sheet right now. So we're going to categorize, we're going to have a top level, what's the most important. If you really want to drill into
super specifics,
that will be in there for you. So we're working on that as well. Explain resource drops based on rank. So this is based off of a conversation we had where I put up the actual treasure table values for everyone to look at so they could see what's going on. And this particular question has to do with, well, I thought I was going to get blues and purples all the time on rank 9 stuff. And that's just not the case. There still is a high degree of variance. We want to make sure that it feels good when you get blues and purples too, mm-hmm. right? It's just the rank 9s have a higher probability than the rank 5s per se, is in this example. So you get a ton more of them. If you were to compare it to 5s, it's just every hit is in blues and purples. Right. There's still whites in there, so you still feel good when the blues and purples comes out. So next question, crafting parcels. Questions about parcels being crafted. Are they going to be caught up in wipes that happen of the store-bought parcels if they're in the bank? What do you think, Mark?
Probably, yes, most definitely. But we have different types of wiping that will be taking place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes we wipe spirit banks, particularly when players find a new dupe bug or whatever, something that's catastrophic, and we go like, all right, fix the bug, and then reset everything back to 0 to get all that bad stuff out of the ecosystem. Everything gets caught in one of those wipes. Mm-hmm. So wipes happen. It's just a phase of where we're at, and we should see less of them in the future.
Yeah.
And for those who have already crafted parcels, do realize that you're crafting at a rate of the amount of resources required, I think, is like a 10th of what they will be. So they're going to be very, very time consuming to craft those if you just want to use the resources from in-game. Next question. Can you elaborate on the basic disciplines and what you're doing with these? I don't like giving up a major discipline slot for the mental fortitude passive. Well, that's part of the progression model. So the reason for the basic disciplines is part of the basic gameplay loop. The very first thing you do when you come in game is you harvest, you craft a basic weapon, you craft basic armor, and then you're going to craft a basic discipline, and that teaches you that there are these things called disciplines. I know for you advanced players who have been with us, you're just like, yeah, I know what a discipline is. I don't need to know what a basic one is. But new people are going to kind of need to know that. So it's part of the teaching of the early on in the game. And so you are eventually going to outgrow mental fortitude. You are going to get better crafted weapons. You're going to get some skills training that basically does the exact same thing. It's just kind of early on when you're using basic weapons, it helps you. Or you're using a weapon that is just meh. So trust me, you'll outgrow it and you won't need that. So when you look at it the way it is now, again, we put it in there to start teaching people how to use disciplines. And yes, disciplines are important things. Next question. What decision is made that determines if a class or discipline is created? Many people can vision the bard being a class as an example, which has been asked here too. Could a discipline become a class post soft launch? I'd love to hear the discussion and decision that would happen. What becomes a discipline versus what becomes a class? What do you think, Mark?
What do I think? Well, I mean, what determines what becomes a class versus a discipline?
Yeah.
I mean, Todd is a big factor.
Yes, and a lot of that is his decisions aren't based on time.
Right.
How much time? Like classes aren't cheap to make. They take a lot of animation. There's a lot of additional effects. Whereas disciplines, you and I can just kind of create a couple powers,
right? And
we have this very strong idea and be like, this would make a kick-ass discipline,
right? But it's a very small subset compared to a class or which is going to be it's a whole package, right? I mean, you're talking at least six powers for the tray, a couple of passives, right, as well as unique art a lot of times, and then specific FX.
And then there's a lot of synergy between a lot of those powers too, right? It's not just as simple as making 6 damage powers.
Right. It's like 6 integrated damage powers that are centered on a theme of whatever the class is.
And it's a lot easier for us to come up with a very small package. Now, that doesn't mean that something that's super strong, like Bard, for example, that we could say, hey, you know what? We could make a class around this if we had the time, but we just don't have the time right now. So we'll give you it as a discipline. And yeah.
Right. And in fact, there's actually, I don't know if we want to say this or not, but we will, or I am right now, words that are happening, talking about possibly renaming Bard to Minstrel to free Bard up as an actual formalized class later on, since it's pretty well developed.
Yeah.
Right
so we have some ideas. So there you go. Next question. Mute ignore. Is there any way to fast track this in game? We should probably definitely look at getting a way to mute or blacklist another player so you don't have to see anything that they're saying, because they don't have a way to do that with the chat system right now. Yeah. Totally agree. We'll see where we can get that.
I mean, it's definitely going to be a required feature for a launch MMO.
Yeah, I can understand now, though, in testing that
I mean,
blood gets riled, people get bent out of shape.
It's definitely something required feature.
Next question. Stats from skill trees. Can you please explain to me why one class gets the benefit from all the skill levels of both trees, making that one class just stat-wise so much stronger? So what they're specifically talking about is the duelist. And the duelist, it's because he can use a pistol and a rapier at the same time. He gets the benefit of all of the one-handed stuff as well as the pistol stuff at the same time. And that's probably my fault. It's totally my fault, because I made those trees months before the duelist even was a thing. It just was. So how are we going to solve that, Mark?
Well, I guess we're going to restructure all of our skill trees, for example.
Yes. So currently underway is some prototyping of a way to restructure all the archetype stuff and restructuring race stuff. I mean, the race class split has just pretty much hit everything in this game.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that we need to change the skill system to some degree to make it work. So when we go through here, we're going to probably rebudget a lot of the
stats, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good opportunity to go through and basically re-massage everything back into where it needs to be, so it fits into the class.
Well,
the
right.
class.
And some exciting news is Sam got us a way to actually equip a main hand and an offhand of different types for the classes that use right now paired weapons.
Right.
So paired weapons are probably on the way out. And what I would imagine people will do because of the skill system is they will probably use a sword or an axe or a mace and a sword, basically so they can double dip into those trees, which probably means that we're going to need to account for that as we do the math for it.
Yep.
So
expect things to change.
Yes. Next question. Exploiting in the new campaigns. So what do we do if people are exploiting loopholes in the new campaigns? Okay, so we're putting up new campaigns, and there's going to be a bunch of issues. It's a whole lot of new tech. It's the first campaigns coming online. Please don't exploit. I think, as Todd said, raising visibility by repeatedly exploiting isn't necessary.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't have to make it unfun for everybody. Once we all know.
Once we all know that this is a thing, we will fix it as fast as humanly possible and get it to live as fast as humanly possible, which usually means a week or two.
Right.
So please don't ruin the experience for everybody else by doing it 8,000 times.
Yeah. If you can show a little restraint for your fellow testers, that's always the best way to go.
Yes. Thanks for coming out for the July Q&A. We will see you in a couple of weeks for the live Q&A. Bye.
Later, buddy.